The glass shattered against the wall, mere inches from Sarah Zimmerman's head, causing her to flinch but not cower as she continued wiping down the bar top at the Silver Dollar Saloon in Laramie, Wyoming. It was 1878, and being a 26-year-old widow with 3 young children meant she couldn't afford the luxury of fear, not when tiny bellies needed to be filled and a leaking roof needed mending before winter came again. "I said another whiskey, woman." The drunken cattle buyer slammed his fist on the counter, his bloodshot eyes narrowing as he studied Sarah's figure in her modest but form-fitting dress. "And maybe a little something extra upstairs after your shift." Sarah's jaw tightened as she reached for a bottle and poured the amber liquid with practiced precision. "Just the whiskey, Mr. Holloway. That's all you get here." Her voice was firm despite the exhaustion that had settled into her bones from working 12 hours straight. "That ain't what I heard," he sneered, his gaze trailing over her in a way that made her skin crawl. "Word is, you need money real bad, with them orphans you're raising and all." Sarah slid the drink across to him, keeping her distance. "My children aren't orphans. They have me." She turned away, ignoring his continued mutterings as she moved to serve other customers. 3 years had passed since influenza had taken her husband Thomas. 3 years of struggling to maintain their small homestead on the outskirts of town while working every night at the saloon. It wasn't the life she'd imagined when they'd traveled west from Pennsylvania with dreams of building something beautiful together. But it was the only way to keep food on the table for 8-year-old Emma, 6-year-old Joshua, and 4-year-old Lily. "Sarah, honey, table 3 needs another round," called Mabel, the aging saloon owner who had taken pity on Sarah after Thomas died. The older woman was kind but practical. She knew having a respectable widow serving drinks brought in the more gentlemanly customers who spent freely, but behaved themselves better than they might otherwise. As Sarah carried a tray of drinks across the room, she felt the weight of stares following her. Most men respected the boundaries she'd established, understanding she worked solely to provide for her children. But others, like Holloway, saw only a vulnerable woman they believed they could pressure or purchase. The saloon doors swung open, bringing with them a gust of autumn air and a tall figure that immediately commanded attention. Sarah glanced up as she delivered the drinks, noting the newcomer with mild curiosity. Strangers weren't unusual in Laramie, positioned as it was along both the railroad and major cattle trails. This one, however, stood out. Dust covered his long duster coat and wide-brimmed hat, suggesting miles of hard travel. But there was something in his straight-back stance that spoke of purpose rather than weariness. When he removed his hat, revealing thick dark hair and a clean-shaven face, Sarah was struck by how young he appeared, perhaps 30 at most, despite the weathered quality of his sun-darkened skin. "Evening," he nodded politely to Mabel as he approached the bar. "Coffee if you have it." "Coffee?" Mabel chuckled. "You sure you're in the right establishment, mister?" "I'm sure." His voice carried a slight Eastern accent, softened by what sounded like years out west. "Been riding since dawn. Need my wits about me." Sarah finished with her table and returned to the bar as Mabel motioned toward her. "Sarah, we've got some coffee still warm in the back. Would you mind?" As Sarah passed behind the newcomer, Holloway stretched out his arm, catching her roughly by the wrist. "Don't go running off now. We ain't finished our conversation." Before Sarah could pull away, the stranger turned. "The lady appears to have business elsewhere," he said quietly, his blue eyes suddenly cold. "I suggest you release her." Holloway's face flushed with anger. "Mind your own affairs, boy. This here's between me and I wasn't suggesting." The stranger's voice remained level, but something in his tone caused conversations around them to falter. His hand hadn't moved toward the gun at his hip, but the subtle shift in his posture made it clear he was prepared to do so if necessary. After a tense moment, Holloway released Sarah's wrist with a disgusted snort. "Ain't worth the trouble anyhow." "Thank you," Sarah murmured to the stranger as she rubbed her wrist. "Though I could have handled it." The corners of his mouth lifted slightly. "No doubt, but my mother taught me better than to watch a lady being harassed." Sarah found herself momentarily caught by his gaze, direct, but not presumptuous before remembering her errand. "I'll get your coffee." When she returned with the steaming cup, the stranger had taken a seat at the far end of the bar, away from the rowdier patrons. He thanked her with a nod, placing a coin on the counter that was worth far more than coffee warranted. "This is too much," she said, trying to return the excess. "Keep it." He wrapped his hands around the mug, savoring the warmth. "Might I trouble you for some information about the town? I'm looking to settle some business here." "What sort of business brings you to Laramie, mister?" "Ryder, Adam Ryder." He took a sip of the coffee. "Cattle, primarily. I'm representing some investors from Denver looking to establish a relationship with local ranchers." "The name's Sarah Zimmerman, and you'll want to speak with Mr. Henderson at the bank tomorrow. He knows every cattle operation within 50 miles. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion at the door, a small, familiar figure darting through the swinging doors, frantically searching the room. "Mama!" Emma, Sarah's eldest, spotted her and rushed forward, her face streaked with tears. "It's Lily. She's burning up with fever and can't stop coughing." Sarah's heart plummeted. "Mrs. Perkins was supposed to be watching you. Why are you alone out at this hour?" "She fell asleep, and I didn't know what to do," Emma sobbed. "Joshua's trying to cool her down, like you showed us, but she keeps asking for you." Mabel appeared beside them, concern etched on her weathered face. "Go, Sarah. Family comes first. But my shift doesn't end for hours, and I need tonight's wages." Sarah's mind raced, calculating what medicines she might need to purchase, what bills were coming due. "Your little one needs you more than these drunkards need another round," Mabel insisted. "We'll manage." Adam Ryder, who had been listening quietly, stood and placed his hat back on his head. "Is your home far, Mrs. Zimmerman?" "About a mile outside town," Sarah answered distractedly, already untying her apron. "It's dark and getting cold. Allow me to escort you and your daughter." He gestured toward the doors. "My horse is outside." Sarah hesitated, wary of accepting help from a stranger, no matter how well-mannered. "Please, Mama," Emma tugged at her hand. "Lily was so hot." "All right," Sarah decided, maternal concern overriding caution. "Thank you, Mr. Ryder." Outside, Adam helped them both onto his sturdy chestnut gelding before mounting behind them. Emma gave directions in a trembling voice as they rode through the darkened streets of Laramie and out onto the rutted road leading to the Zimmerman homestead. The small house came into view, a single lantern burning in the window. As they dismounted, Sarah rushed inside to find Joshua sitting beside his little sister's bed, diligently placing wet cloths on her forehead. Lily's cheeks were flushed crimson, her breathing labored and punctuated by a harsh cough. "I tried to make her better, Mama," Joshua whispered, his eyes large with worry. "You did wonderfully," Sarah assured him, placing her palm against Lily's burning forehead. The child's skin radiated heat, and when she opened her glassy eyes, she seemed to look through rather than at Sarah. "She needs a doctor," Adam said from the doorway, taking in the scene with a grim expression. "Dr. Wallace won't come out this far at night without being paid up front," Sarah replied, her voice tight with helpless frustration. "And I don't have enough set aside yet." Adam knelt beside the bed, studying Lily's symptoms with a focused gaze. "My father was a physician. This looks like lung fever pneumonia. She needs medicine, and quickly." Without hesitation, he stood and moved toward the door. "I'll ride for the doctor myself and cover whatever he requires. Keep her cool as best you can until we return." "Mr. Ryder, I can't accept," Sarah began. "You can argue with me when your daughter is well," he interrupted firmly. "Which door is hers?" "I'll tell him where to come. The blue house at the edge of town with the oak tree out front," Joshua piped up. Adam nodded and was gone before Sarah could protest further, the sound of hoofbeats rapidly fading into the night. For the next hour, Sarah and her older children worked together, changing the cooling cloths, helping Lily sip water, and singing softly to comfort her when coughing fits racked her tiny body. Sarah tried not to let her children see her fear, but each rasping breath from Lily's lungs sent terror coursing through her. After losing Thomas, the thought of losing one of their children was unbearable. True to his word, Adam returned with Dr. Wallace, who examined Lily with practiced efficiency before administering medicine from his bag. "It is pneumonia, as Mr. Ryder suspected," the doctor confirmed. "But we've caught it early enough. Keep giving her this tonic every 4 hours, maintain the cool compresses to manage the fever, and make sure she drinks plenty of fluids." When Dr. Wallace had finished his instructions and packed to leave, Sarah followed him outside, her voice low. "About your fee, doctor. Already settled, Wallace interrupted, nodding toward Adam, who was unsaddling his horse nearby. Mr. Ryder paid for both my services and a week's worth of medicine. Said to bill him if you need anything else. The doctor's expression softened with rare compassion. You've got quite the champion there, Mrs. Zimmerman. After the doctor departed, Sarah approached Adam, who was now leading his horse to the small lean-to that served as a stable. You shouldn't have done that, she said, arms crossed against the autumn chill. I don't accept charity, Mr. Ryder. Adam secured his horse before turning to face her. The moonlight cast half his face in shadow, but she could see the determination in his expression. It wasn't charity, Mrs. Zimmerman. It was the right thing to do. I can't repay you, at least not immediately. I'm not asking for repayment. He stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. Your children needed help. That's all that matters. Sarah studied him, trying to discern his motives. Men didn't simply help a saloon worker and her children without expecting something in return that had been her experience, at least. Why then? She asked directly. You don't know us. I know enough. His gaze moved to the small house, where a candle still burned in the window. I know what it's like to watch a parent struggle alone. A shadow crossed his features. After my father died, my mother worked herself to exhaustion, trying to provide for me and my sisters. No one stepped forward to help when they could have. The genuine emotion in his voice disarmed Sarah's suspicions somewhat. I'm sorry about your mother. She's at peace now. Adam's expression cleared. But I made a promise to myself years ago that I wouldn't stand by when I saw someone fighting the same battle she fought. Sarah's defenses began to crumble despite her best efforts to maintain them. It's been difficult since Thomas passed. Your husband? She nodded, looking away. 3 years ago, influenza, the same thing that nearly took Lily tonight. Adam was quiet for a moment. The children are fortunate to have such a devoted mother. They're all I have, Sarah replied simply. A chill wind gusted between them, causing Sarah to shiver in her thin saloon dress. You should go inside, Adam said. Your daughter needs you, and you need rest. Where will you go? It's late to be riding back to town. I've slept under worse conditions than your stable, he answered with a slight smile. If you don't mind my horse and me taking shelter there tonight. Sarah hesitated, propriety warring with gratitude. The least I can offer is the sofa. It's not comfortable, but it's better than hay and dirt. I wouldn't want to impose. You've done more for my family tonight than anyone has in years, Mr. Ryder. Sarah found herself meaning every word. The sofa is yours, if you want it. In the early morning light, Sarah woke with a start, momentarily disoriented to find herself in a chair beside Lily's bed, rather than in her own room. The events of the previous night came rushing back as she immediately checked her daughter's forehead. The fever had broken sometime during the night, and Lily was sleeping peacefully, her breathing still congested, but no longer the labored gasps that had terrified Sarah. The aroma of coffee and something cooking drew her attention. Following the scent to the kitchen, she was greeted by the unexpected sight of Adam Ryder standing at her stove, expertly flipping flapjacks in her cast-iron skillet, while Emma set the table and Joshua fed kindling into the stove. Good morning, Adam said, looking up with a smile that transformed his serious face. Hope you don't mind. The children were hungry, and you needed sleep. How's Lily? Emma asked anxiously. Much better, Sarah assured her, still taking in the domestic scene before her. Her fever's broken. Mr. Ryder says that's the most important part, Joshua declared, with the certainty of a child repeating an adult's wisdom. And he showed me how to stack wood in the stove so it burns better. Did he now? Sarah raised an eyebrow at Adam. Just passing on what my father taught me, he replied, sliding a perfectly browned flapjack onto a growing stack. I hope I haven't overstepped. No, Sarah said softly. Thank you. After breakfast, which was the heartiest meal her children had enjoyed in weeks, Adam prepared to depart for his business in town. Sarah walked him to where his horse waited, already saddled. I don't know how to thank you properly, she began, but Adam shook his head. Seeing your daughter recovering is thanks enough. He adjusted his saddle strap, then turned to face her directly. But I would like to make a proposal, Mrs. Zimmerman. Sarah tensed, old wariness returning. Here it comes, she thought. "I've observed that you're working yourself ragged between this homestead and the saloon," he continued, "and while admirable, it's not sustainable, especially with a sick child." "We manage," Sarah replied stiffly. "I'm sure you do, but I'd like to help provide what your children need." Sarah's spine straightened. "Mr. Ryder, if you're suggesting some sort of arrangement—" "Nothing improper," he quickly assured her, looking slightly abashed. "Forgive me if I gave that impression. What I'm proposing is employment. Legitimate employment." "What sort of employment?" "As I mentioned, I'm establishing a cattle operation here. The investors I represent have purchased the old Davidson Ranch about 3 miles north of town. We'll need a housekeeper and cook for the main house, where I'll be living and conducting business." Sarah frowned. "I know that property. It's been abandoned for years." "Which is why we got it at a fair price," Adam agreed. "It needs considerable work, but the bones are good. I'm hiring men to begin repairs today." He paused. "The position would pay twice what you make at the saloon, with regular hours that would allow you to be home with your children each night." Sarah stared at him, trying to process the offer. "Why me? You know nothing about my cooking or housekeeping skills. I know you're hard-working, resourceful, and that you managed to maintain this homestead despite all odds." His eyes held hers steadily. "Those are qualities I value far more than whether you can make a perfect pie crust." The opportunity was almost too perfect a respectable position, with better pay and hours that would keep her away from the increasingly difficult situations at the saloon. Yet Sarah had learned the hard way that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. "And what would you expect in return for this generosity?" she asked cautiously. A flicker of something hurt, perhaps crossed Adam's face before his expression composed itself. "Honest work, Mrs. Zimmerman, nothing more." She studied him, trying to detect any hint of deception, but found only forthright determination in his gaze. "I'd need to bring my children with me while I work," she said finally, "at least until Lily is fully recovered." "Of course." He nodded. "There's plenty of space for them, and once the house is habitable, there's a small cabin on the property where you and your family could live if you wished. It would save you the daily journey." Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities. Living closer to town would mean easier access to school for the children, the doctor if needed, supplies. "I'd need to see this ranch first," she said carefully, "and discuss terms more specifically." "Naturally." Adam's expression brightened. "I'll return tomorrow if your daughter is well enough for you to leave for a few hours. We can ride out to the property together." As he mounted his horse, he added, "In the meantime, I've taken the liberty of having some groceries delivered later today. Consider it an advance on your first week's wages should you accept the position." Before Sarah could formulate a response, he tipped his hat and rode away, leaving her standing in her yard with mixed feelings of hope, suspicion, and an unfamiliar flutter of something she wasn't quite ready to name. True to his word, a wagon from the general store arrived that afternoon, laden with more provisions than Sarah had been able to afford at one time since Thomas died. Fresh beef, flour, sugar, coffee, dried fruit, and even small treats for the children, peppermint sticks that made their eyes widen in delight. As promised, Adam returned the next day to find Lily much improved, sitting propped up with pillows and sipping broth, while her siblings played quietly nearby. With Mrs. Perkins enlisted to watch the children, Sarah accompanied Adam to the Davidson Ranch. The main house was indeed in need of significant repair, but Sarah could immediately see the potential beneath years of neglect. High ceilings, large windows that would allow ample light when properly cleaned, a sprawling kitchen with a massive hearth, and enough bedrooms upstairs to house several families comfortably. "What do you think?" Adam asked as they toured the property, his enthusiasm evident as he pointed out features and outlined his plans for improvements. "It's ambitious," Sarah admitted, "but promising." She was struck by how clearly he envisioned the future of the place not just as a business venture, but as a home. He spoke of gardens to be planted, of where furniture might best be arranged, of making the porch a welcoming gathering place. "The cabin I mentioned is just down this path," he said, leading her toward a smaller structure partially hidden by cottonwood trees. "It needs less work than the main house." The cabin, while simple, was nearly twice the size of Sarah's current home, with 2 bedrooms, a cozy front room with a stone fireplace, and a kitchen that made her current cooking space seem like a closet in comparison. "This is more than I expected," she said, running her fingers along the sturdy mantelpiece. "Would it suit your family?" Adam asked, watching her closely. Sarah nodded slowly. "It would be a palace compared to where we live now." They settled on terms that seemed almost too generous a salary that would allow Sarah to save for the children's future. The cabin provided as part of her compensation and hours that would ensure she was home for supper with her family each evening. Adam would arrange for workmen to make the cabin habitable within 2 weeks, at which point Sarah and her children could move in. As they rode back toward her homestead, Sarah found herself studying Adam's profile against the afternoon sun, wondering at the unexpected turn her life had taken in just 2 days. "Why are you really doing all this, Mr. Ryder?" she finally asked. He glanced at her, then returned his gaze to the trail ahead. "I told you." "About your mother, yes," Sarah interrupted. "But there must be dozens of qualified housekeepers in and around Laramie who don't come with 3 children and a questionable reputation from working at a saloon." Adam was silent for several moments. "When I saw you with your daughter last night," he eventually said, "I recognized something familiar, the same determination my mother showed, the same willingness to sacrifice everything for her children." He adjusted his hat, as if uncomfortable with the admission. "And I suppose I saw an opportunity to finally do for someone else what I wish someone had done for her." The simple honesty in his voice convinced Sarah more than any elaborate explanation could have. "She would be proud of the man you've become," she said softly. His shoulders straightened almost imperceptibly. "I hope so." The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind as Sarah balanced caring for Lily, whose recovery progressed steadily, with her final shifts at the saloon and preparations to move to the ranch. Mabel was sorry to lose her, but understood the opportunity was too good to refuse. "You were never meant for this life anyway, honey," the older woman said as they embraced on Sarah's last night. "You've got too much class for a place like this." Adam proved as good as his word, overseeing repairs to the cabin himself, and often arriving at Sarah's homestead with supplies or to report on progress. The children, initially shy around him, quickly warmed to his steady presence, especially Joshua, who followed him like a shadow whenever he visited, absorbing every bit of knowledge the older man shared about horses, carpentry, and the cattle business. "Mr. Ryder says I can help with the calves come spring," Joshua announced one evening, his chest puffed with importance. "Did he now?" Sarah smiled, noting how her son's eyes shone with admiration whenever Adam was mentioned. Even little Lily, fully recovered but still wary of strangers after her illness, had begun to light up when Adam appeared, offering him solemn drawings as gifts that he accepted with genuine appreciation before carefully stowing them in his coat pocket. Only Emma maintained a careful distance, watching Adam with thoughtful eyes that sometimes reminded Sarah painfully of Thomas. At 8 years old, Emma remembered her father clearly and seemed most aware of what his absence meant and most protective of her mother's heart. "Is Mr. Ryder going to be like a new papa?" she asked one night as Sarah tucked her into bed. The question caught Sarah off guard. "No, sweetheart. He's going to be my employer. I'll be working for him, keeping his house in order." Emma considered this with a serious expression. "Tommy Wilson at school said his mama heard that Mr. Ryder is sweet on you." Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks. "People in town will always find something to gossip about, Emma. Mr. Ryder has simply been kind to us because he needed help with his house, and we needed the work." But as she blew out the lamp and left Emma's room, Sarah couldn't help wondering if there might be some truth to the gossip. Adam had been unfailingly respectful, never crossing the boundaries of propriety, yet she sometimes caught him watching her with an expression that suggested more than mere employer interest. And if she were honest with herself, she had begun to look forward to his visits with an eagerness that had nothing to do with updates on the cabin repairs. There was something about his steady presence, his thoughtful manner, and the gentle way he interacted with her children that awakened feelings Sarah had believed died with Thomas. The day they moved to the cabin dawned clear and cold, with the first hints of winter in the air. Adam arrived with 2 wagons, one for their meager belongings, the other a surprise. "I took the liberty of ordering some necessities for the cabin," he explained, as his hired men unloaded sturdy new furniture, warm bedding, kitchen supplies, and even toys for the children. "Consider it part of your compensation package." "This is far more than we agreed upon," Sarah protested, even as she ran her fingers over a beautiful oak dining table that would actually accommodate all of them comfortably. "The success of the ranch depends on you being properly equipped," Adam replied pragmatically, though the twinkle in his eyes suggested he knew his excuse was transparent. By evening, they were settled in their new home, the fireplace crackling warmly as Sarah prepared their first meal in the spacious kitchen. Adam had been invited to stay for supper, Joshua's insistent request that his mother couldn't politely refuse, though she suspected Adam might have stayed regardless. As they ate together at the new table, with the children chattering excitedly about their new rooms and the ranch animals they hoped to meet, Sarah was struck by how natural it felt, like a family gathering rather than a meal with her employer. Adam listened attentively to each child, answering Joshua's questions about horses, complimenting Lily on her appetite, and drawing out even the reluctant Emma with gentle inquiries about her interests in school. Later, after the children were tucked into their new beds and Sarah and Adam sat by the fire with cups of coffee, a comfortable silence fell between them. "They seem happy here," Adam observed quietly. "They are," Sarah smiled. "It's more than I could have provided them on my own. I don't know how to thank you properly." "You don't need to thank me. Your work will be invaluable as we establish the ranch." He hesitated, then added, "And having your family here brings life to this place in a way I hadn't anticipated." Something in his tone made Sarah look up, meeting his gaze across the firelight. The intensity she found there caused her breath to catch. "Sarah," he said softly, using her given name for the first time, "I want to be honest with you." Her hands tightened around her cup. "Yes? When I offered you this position, my motives weren't entirely selfless." He set his coffee aside, leaning forward with his forearms on his knees. "From the moment I saw you in that saloon, handling difficult men with dignity and rushing to your child's side without hesitation, I knew you were someone extraordinary. Adam, please, let me finish." His eyes held hers steadily. "I don't expect anything from you beyond what we've agreed upon professionally. Your position here is secure regardless. But I would be less than honest if I didn't admit that I find myself thinking of you as more than just my housekeeper." Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. "It's been only 3 years since Thomas died. I never thought I would—" She broke off, unable to articulate the confusing emotions swirling within her. "I understand," Adam said gently, "and I'm not asking for anything now, just your permission to hope that perhaps, with time, you might come to see me as more than your employer." The vulnerability in his expression touched something deep within Sarah. This man, who had shown nothing but strength and capability since she'd met him, was offering his heart to her with no guarantee she would ever reciprocate. "I can't make any promises," she said finally. "My children must come first in all things." "As they should," he nodded, "and I would never ask otherwise. But," she continued carefully, "I would not be opposed to us becoming better acquainted beyond our working relationship." The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "That's all I can ask for." As winter settled over Wyoming, the ranch began to take shape under Adam's determined direction. The main house was transformed room by room, with Sarah overseeing the details of making it a comfortable home, while Adam focused on building the livestock operation and establishing relationships with the neighboring ranchers and businesses in Laramie. True to his word, he never pressed for more than friendship, though his attentions made his continued interest clear. He joined the family for Sunday dinners, brought small, thoughtful gifts for the children, and occasionally escorted Sarah into town for supplies, his respectful manner silencing any lingering gossip about the nature of their arrangement. Christmas approached, bringing with it a sense of anticipation unlike anything the Zimmerman children had experienced since their father's death. Adam arranged for a massive pine tree to be set up in the main house's newly renovated parlor, and Sarah spent evenings with the children creating decorations from paper, ribbon, and pine cones. "Mama, do you think Mr. Ryder likes us? Really likes us?" Lily asked one evening as they strung cranberries for the tree. "Of course he does, sweetheart. Why do you ask?" "Because I think he wants to be our new papa," Lily stated with childish directness. "He looks at you the way Papa used to in the pictures." Sarah felt Emma's gaze on her, watchful and concerned. Mr. Ryder is very kind to us, she said carefully. But becoming part of a family is a very serious decision that takes time. But you like him too, Joshua chimed in. You smile different when he's here. Sarah realized she'd underestimated her children's perceptiveness. I do care for Mr. Ryder, she acknowledged. He's become an important friend to all of us. But you loved Papa, Emma said quietly. It wasn't quite a question, but Sarah heard the uncertainty behind it. Setting aside her sewing, Sarah gathered her eldest daughter close. I will always love your father, Emma. Nothing and no one can ever change that, or take away the special place he has in my heart. She smoothed Emma's hair, choosing her words carefully. But your papa would want us to be happy, don't you think? He wouldn't want us to be alone forever. Emma considered this, her brow furrowed in thought. I guess not, she finally conceded. And Mr. Ryder does make you smile more. On Christmas Eve, Adam joined them for a special dinner in the main house, followed by the lighting of candles on the tree. He arrived bearing gifts for each of them, a beautiful doll with real porcelain hands and feet for Lily, a set of carved wooden animals for Joshua, and for Emma, most touching of all, a journal bound in soft leather with her initials stamped in gold. Your mother tells me you have a gift for stories, he explained as Emma traced the letters with wondering fingers. I thought you might like a special place to write them down. Emma's careful reserve finally melted as she impulsively hugged him. Thank you, Mr. Ryder. It's perfect. For Sarah, he had chosen a delicate silver locket containing miniature portraits of her 3 children, commissioned from a photographer who had visited Laramie the month before. The thoughtfulness of capturing her children's faces, her most precious treasures, moved her to tears. Later, after the children had fallen asleep in front of the fire, exhausted from excitement, Sarah and Adam stood side by side, gazing at the candlelit tree. You've given us the most beautiful Christmas we've had in years, Sarah said softly. The children will remember this forever. They deserve every happiness, Adam replied. As do you. He turned to face her, his expression serious in the flickering light. Sarah, these past months have been the happiest of my life. Building this ranch has been satisfying, but what truly matters is the home we've created here. You, the children, and me. Sarah felt a familiar flutter in her chest at the earnestness in his voice. Over the weeks, her initial caution had slowly given way to genuine affection, and lately, something deeper that she was finally ready to acknowledge. Adam, she began, but he gently placed a finger over her lips. Please, let me say this while I have the courage. He took her hands in his. I know it hasn't been long, and I promised I wouldn't rush you, but with each passing day, my feelings for you and your children grow stronger. His voice deepened with emotion. I love you, Sarah Zimmerman. I love your strength, your kindness, your devotion to your family. And I've come to love Emma, Joshua, and Lily as if they were my own. Sarah's heart pounded as he continued. I'm not asking to replace Thomas in your heart or in your children's memories, but I am asking for the chance to create new memories together, as a family. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. This was my mother's. Before she died, she made me promise I would only give it to a woman who embodied her strength and compassion. Opening the box revealed a simple but elegant ring, a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds that caught the candlelight. Sarah Zimmerman, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Time seemed to suspend as Sarah looked from the ring to Adam's hopeful face. In that moment, she felt Thomas's presence not as a barrier between her and this new chance at happiness, but as a gentle blessing. He had loved her enough to want her joy above all else. Yes, she whispered, tears spilling onto her cheeks. Yes, I will marry you, Adam Ryder. As he slipped the ring onto her finger and drew her into his arms for their first real kiss, Sarah felt the last pieces of her fractured heart healing. This wasn't the ending of her story with Thomas, she realized, but the beginning of a new chapter she hadn't dared hope for, one filled with love, security, and the family they would build together. They were married on a bright spring day in April 1879, with the ranch in full bloom around them. The ceremony was held outdoors, beneath an arch of wildflowers that Adam and Joshua had constructed together. Emma served as her mother's maid of honor, solemnly carrying a posy of spring blossoms while Lily scattered petals along the path with exuberant enthusiasm. Joshua, standing proudly at Adam's side as his best man, beamed with importance in his new suit. Sarah wore a gown of pale blue silk, Adam's gift, though she had protested the extravagance with her dark hair swept up and adorned with small white flowers. As she walked toward her groom, escorted by Mabel in place of the father she'd lost years before, Sarah felt a profound sense of rightness. The path that had led her here had been marked by hardship and grief, but had ultimately brought her to this moment of perfect joy. Reverend Mitchell spoke of new beginnings and the miracle of love that could bloom even after great loss, his words bringing tears to many eyes in the small gathering of friends and neighbors. When it came time for the vows, Adam surprised Sarah by addressing not just her, but her children as well. Kneeling to their eye level, he spoke from the heart. Emma, Joshua, and Lily, today I'm not only pledging my love and devotion to your mother, but to each of you as well. I promise to honor the memory of your father, to protect and provide for you, to listen to your concerns and celebrate your joys, and to love you as my own children for all the days of my life. He presented each child with a small gold band on a chain. A symbol, he explained, that we are becoming one family, bound together by love rather than simply by law. There wasn't a dry eye to be found as the children, overcome with emotion, wrapped their arms around Adam in a spontaneous group embrace that nearly toppled him backward, bringing laughter through the tears. When Adam and Sarah were pronounced husband and wife, their first kiss as a married couple was almost immediately followed by jubilant children throwing themselves into the embrace, transforming the traditional moment into a family huddle that perfectly represented their union. The celebration afterward lasted well into the evening, with tables set up on the ranch's sprawling lawn, lanterns illuminating the gathering as darkness fell, and music provided by local musicians that had the children dancing with abandon and even the most reserved guests tapping their feet. Sarah found herself watching her new husband throughout the celebration, marveling at how seamlessly he had integrated himself into their lives. Adam moved easily between conversations with neighboring ranchers about business matters to getting down on his knees to admire Lily's latest dance steps, his face alight with genuine interest in both. As the evening wound down and the last guests departed, Adam found Sarah standing on the porch of the main house, gazing up at the star-filled Wyoming sky. "Happy, Mrs. Ryder?" he asked, slipping his arms around her waist from behind. The her new name brought a smile to her lips. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied, leaning back against his solid warmth. "The children are asleep," he murmured against her hair, exhausted from all the excitement. Sarah turned in his arms to face him. "And where will we be sleeping tonight, husband? The cabin or the main house?" Adam's eyes darkened at her teasing tone. "I've had a room prepared for us here," he said, his voice low. "Unless you'd prefer—" Sarah silenced him with a kiss that held the promise of the night to come. "Lead the way, Mr. Ryder." Later, lying in Adam's arms in the master bedroom that was now truly theirs, Sarah marveled at how completely her life had transformed in less than a year. From the desperate widow working in a saloon to make ends meet, to the cherished wife of a man who adored not only her but her children, who had promised to provide everything they needed and so much more. "What are you thinking?" Adam asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "That I'm the luckiest woman in Wyoming," she answered honestly. "That night when Lily was sick, I was terrified I might lose her, and instead, I found you." "I think it was I who found you," he corrected gently. "And I thank God every day that I walked into that saloon at precisely the moment you needed help." Sarah propped herself up on one elbow to look at him in the moonlight streaming through the window. "Do you ever regret it? Taking on a ready-made family instead of starting fresh with a young bride who didn't come with 3 children and a past?" Adam's expression grew serious as he cupped her cheek. "Sarah, when I lost my parents, I thought I would never have a family again. I threw myself into work, into building something that would last, but it was all hollow without someone to share it with." His thumb brushed across her lips. "You and the children aren't some burden I've nobly accepted. You're the gift I never dared hope for. A complete family, all at once." His sincerity washed away the last lingering doubts Sarah had harbored. "I love you, Adam Ryder," she whispered, "with all that I am." "And I love you, Sarah Ryder," he replied, drawing her down for a kiss that sealed their new beginning. The years that followed brought both joys and challenges as they built their life together. The ranch prospered under Adam's careful management, becoming one of the most successful operations in the territory. Sarah's role evolved from housekeeper to full partner in both the business and social aspects of ranch life, her natural intelligence and charm making her an asset in negotiations and community affairs alike. The children thrived in the stability and love of their blended family. Emma's initial reserve gave way to a deep bond with her stepfather, who encouraged her scholarly pursuits and arranged for additional tutoring that eventually led to her becoming the first in their family to attend university back east. Joshua grew into his role as Adam's right-hand man on the ranch, absorbing every lesson about cattle, horses, and land management with enthusiasm that made it clear he would someday be a fine rancher in his own right. And little Lily, who had nearly been lost that fateful night, blossomed into a spirited girl whose musical talents Adam nurtured with piano lessons in town and eventually a fine instrument of her own in the ranch house parlor. In the spring of 1881, the family welcomed a new addition, Samuel Thomas Ryder, named for both Adam's father and Sarah's first husband in a gesture that honored their shared past while embracing their future together. 2 years later, they were blessed with twin daughters, Grace and Hope, completing their family circle. On a warm summer evening in 1888, as they sat together on the wide porch of the ranch house watching their children play in the golden light of sunset, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 10 years had passed since that desperate night when she'd feared losing everything. Instead, she had found more than she'd ever dreamed possible. "Penny for your thoughts, love," Adam said, taking her hand as they sat side by side, his hair now touched with distinguished silver at the temples. "I was just thinking about the night we met," Sarah replied. "How afraid I was then. How alone." Adam's fingers tightened around hers. And now, Sarah looked out at their 6 children, the 3 who had taught her the fierce strength of a mother's love through the hardest of times, and the 3 who had been born into the abundance of their shared happiness. Emma, now a poised young woman of 18, was reading to the twins. Joshua, 16 and nearly as tall as his stepfather, was showing 14-year-old Lily and 7-year-old Samuel how to throw a lasso, their laughter carrying across the yard. "Now I know that sometimes the darkest moments can lead to the brightest futures," she said, leaning her head against Adam's shoulder. "That night, you promised to provide what my children needed, but you gave us so much more than food and shelter, Adam. You gave us a family, a home, a love I never thought I'd find again." Adam pressed a kiss to her temple. "You gave me the same gifts, Sarah. Every single day I thank God for leading me to that saloon, to you." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Wyoming sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple, Sarah Ryder counted her blessings in the faces of her beloved family, the beautiful evidence of a life reclaimed from despair and transformed by love, one brave choice at a time. The legacy they built together would continue long after them, in the ranch that bore their name, in the children who carried their values, and in the story that would be told for generations to come of a desperate mother working in a saloon to feed her children, and the cowboy who had said, "Let me provide what they need," offering not just the necessities of life, but the lasting abundance of love that had made them whole.